Hi everyone, I'm freezing cold, but hopefully we can cuddle up together and warm up with the help of 1914 and their brand new full-length studio album, Viribus Unitis. I don't know what that was, and I apologize. Viribus Unitis. I got that right the first time. Why did... autism moment, I don't know. Anyways, this is the latest full-length studio album from Ukrainian blackened death metal crew. They've been kicking around for a while now, but we haven't really talked about them all that much here on the Metal Meltdown because I've never really formed too much of an opinion on them. Like, I'm pretty sure we talked about 2021's Where Fear and Weapons Meet. I'm pretty sure of that. I don't remember what I thought of it. And I don't think I've listened to their other albums really at all, if I'm being honest. And if I have, I don't immediately remember. But that's okay, because as it turns out, this might be the best moment in history thus far to finally become acquainted with 1914, because if early reviews and comments are to be believed, and I kind of think they are, this is 1914's biggest, boldest, bestest, and most importantest album to date, and a full realization of everything that 1914 is and stands for. Not really my words. I mean, they are the words that are coming out of my mouth, but yeah. The horrors of war is by no means a brand new topic for metal at large, and certainly not for 1914, but the story of this particular album, the story of a Ukrainian soldier fighting through the Great War, World War I, and just trying to get home, dealing with the trauma, the tragedy, the violence of war, I think cuts pretty deep. All along the way, recounting historical events like the Siege of Przemysl and the Battle of Asiago in chronological order and also in brutal fashion. As 1914 elaborates, Viribus Unitis is about shared strength and the idea that true power lies in unity. Alone one may fall, together we can prevail and achieve our goals. A story of life and military valor of a soldier who encountered the Great War in his native city of Lviv and went through it all, side by side with joint efforts of Ukrainians, Poles, Hungarians, Slovenes, Czechs, Slovaks, Jews, Croats, Bosniaks, Germans, all the peoples who made up the vast Austro-Hungarian Empire. Empires did not count people, they threw them into meat grinders where survival was only possible through unity, by helping one another, by sacrificing yourself for the sake of your loved ones and comrades. The brutal, bloody, unforgiving nature of the Great War is captured pretty successfully, I would say, across the album. In its first half, we're dealing primarily with some bludgeoning, pummeling, blackened death metal with some doomy undertones here and there to provide more cinematic moments and to provide more contrast and atmosphere. The track 1914, The Siege of Przemysl, for instance, is intense and filled with churning, grinding, blasting, towering riffs and beats and wild, manic vocal shrieks and shouts and gutturals. There's some weird semi-dissonant tones and textures and different kind of like melodic black metal-esque kind of twin guitar licks and leads and such that do a good job at providing additional tension and height as well. It's just so cold and violent, as too is the following number, 1915 Eastern Battle for the Zwinwin Ridge, which at first has a combination of like these massive walls of percussive blasts and like blackened death metal chaos and menace that brings to mind a weird mishmash of like classic Morbid Angel and Behemoth. But as the track goes on, we lean more and more into the black metal side of things, with some raging, storming, rampaging tremolo riffs, and these like kind of like deep, chanting choral vocals, giving everything a huge epic quality. There's a real kind of like religious grandeur and feel to these vocals as well. It almost brings me back to like Batushka or Patriarch, whichever one you side with. Oh, also, that lead riff in the very beginning of the song, one of the nastiest riffs I've heard on a black and death metal record all year. Goddamn. The real start of the show, though, is the three-parter 1918 track saga. This is where 1914 really branch out and really start doing some really nasty, cool, dangerous, powerful stuff. Like part 1, Wounded in Action, is full-blown Death Doom, retaining a little bit of that blackened quality sure, and even a bit of a gothic underbelly at times, I would maybe even suggest and argue. It is slow, it is menacing, and I like how the chanting choral vocals from earlier in the album are reintroduced here, but maybe stripped a little bit of their grandeur. Like, it's still big and it still feels important, but it's more ominous and, like, horrifying here. Then part 2, Prisoner of War, featuring Christopher Scott from Precious Death on guest vocals, kind of expands on this, bringing in more and more gothic influences and textures and melodies. Very dark, very tragic, great use of these like howling vocals and these kind of like rambling, manic kind of shrieking vocals. Definitely taps a little bit into the doom and gloom and depressing vibes, I would say, of a band like My Dying Bride. Coincidentally, Aaron Strainthorpe, formerly of My Dying Bride fame, apparently he's not in the band anymore. I don't know the full story. I don't quite get it. But he's here on the following number, part 3, A Duty to Escape, bringing us full-blown My Dying Bride, gothic death doom. Expertly interwoven, might I add, with more nuanced and complex theatrical kind of blackened death metal. Like it has the heart and the essence of a My Dying Bride song, and Aaron's signature, like, dark, gloomy vocal onslaught, but it also has those kinds of raging riffs, and it also still bears that kind of, like, grit and that darkness. That being said, my favorite cut on the record is actually 1919, The Home Where I Died, featuring Jerome Ruder. A slow, calculating, dark, gothic ballad with piano and keyboards, and a deeper, darker, kind of more Leonard Cohen-esque voice guiding the way. It's thoughtful, it's tragic, it's genuinely touching, and a great way to somewhat unofficially close out the album. The actual closing number, Wore Out the End, is more of a kind of old school Great War kind of jingle. In fact, there's a bunch of these all throughout the album as well, and I think they do a good job at kind of like immersing you in that moment, in that time. This one specifically, though, sounds like something you might have heard in the end credits of like a Ukrainian black and white film. I don't know, something like that. The fact that it's called Wore Out the End with a question mark, I think some will think that this is sequel bait. They're implying that there will be a sequel to this album. I don't think so. I think that's just kind of like a darkly cheeky way of kind of pointing out the fact that, like, people genuinely thought that the Great War, the war to end all wars, would be the only war, and the idea of World War II coming 15, 20 years later was just impossible to really conceive and imagine, you know? Like, yes, the war is over, but the cycles of tragedy and violence continue. War itself has not come to an end. The idea that it might somehow have done so was naive, I should say. That's what I think is really going on here. But hey, if I am wrong, and this is like some Marvel movie post-credit scene, Nick Fury setting up the Avengers type shit, and 1914 is winking and nudging at a sequel, so fucking be it. This is an excellent album. I would have no issue hearing more of it. The first half of this album is, for me, a very enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5. The second half of this album is a very enthusiastic 4.5 out of 5. So we're going to split the difference and go right in the middle with a very strong 4 out of 5. I think it is a great album through and through, cinematic, daring, full of twists and turns and brutal pummeling moments and stories, and it's just a powerful and tragic record. I'm honestly running out of things to say, so I think we're in a good spot to wrap things up. 1914 Viribus Unitis, very strong 4 out of 5. Definitely check it out. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I am not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. Boom, more videos. Join us on Discord. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.